Hey guys, we're back. It's Jay from Three Rivers Outdoors with the help of my son Jay4 doing the filming today. And what we're gonna do this afternoon is show you how to make some awesome St. Louis style ribs that could win any local competition. We're gonna show you our 3-2-1 rib cooking method on our smoker. So stay tuned and we're gonna show you how to get the ribs prepared, seasoned, and on the smoker. Thanks for tuning in. So one of the things you're gonna see when you unpackage your ribs, on the underside of the ribs, you're gonna find a clear membrane. So if you have a pair of gloves, you can use your gloves to peel this membrane off. Some people like to use it to grab it with a paper towel. Sometimes that makes it a little bit easier. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab this clear membrane and you wanna pull this off of the rib using your gloves and your paper towel as best as you can. If you do it right, this can come off in a pretty consistent piece. Don't worry if it doesn't. What you can always do, you can always get it with your knife. And the other thing too that we like to do with our ribs is we like to trim any of the excess fat off the bottom of the rib to make them as meaty as possible. So you can see here, there's a few things that need to be trimmed. We're gonna go ahead, trim up these ribs, and we're gonna show you what they look like when we're all done. So one of the things you're gonna notice, we got these ribs at Costco, and many times you're gonna have to square those ribs off. So you want those ribs to look like this. A lot of times, and this one's done, a lot of times what you're gonna find is, on these ribs, after you trim them, you're gonna have to feel at the top, and you're gonna find that there's always some bones that are on an angle. You wanna cut those bones off. You can see those bones are not running perpendicular to the rib bone. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna trim those bones off like this and get our knife in there. We're gonna remove those bones nice and easy. Actually, I can't even feel that one. We're gonna remove those bones. We're gonna square off these ribs as best as we can so they look nice and neat when they go into the smoker. So you can see here, and you got one long bone here on the end, but you can see here, now what we have are just the rib bones and just the rib meat. So I'm gonna finish trimming these, and you guys stay tuned, and we're gonna get these things on the smoker in just a few minutes. Okay, so once your ribs are trimmed and you can see you've got all even bones on all the sides of the ribs, what you want to do is you want to start with your base. And our base is a yellow mustard base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some basic yellow mustard to help some of our seasoning stick. You just want to rub that in to get a good coating on all the sides of the meat. And you want to turn. Do the exact same thing on the other side. The purpose of the mustard is to ensure that your seasonings stick really, really well. I like to do it on a tray as well because it keeps your kitchen a little cleaner and you don't lose as many of the spices. Now, these are pork spare ribs. You can do the same with baby back ribs, but we like a little bit meatier rib. Baby back aren't as meaty. So the next step is seasoning. The next step is seasoning. So we keep ours pretty simple. We're going to use a little bit of onion powder. I want to give them a nice light coat of onion powder. You don't want to overwhelm with onion. The next is our garlic powder. And we like ours with a little more garlic, so we're going to give them a good coating of garlic powder. I'm going to get all the meat you can, kind of pat it in. And lastly, for the standard, or the normal seasonings, we're using our classic barbecue rub. You just want to give this a nice, healthy coat of your classic barbecue rub. This will also give it a nice color, as you can see. Coat all the areas as evenly as you can. And lastly, you want sea salt, a little bit of sea salt, because your classic rub is going to have some salt in it already. And most importantly, black pepper. And we like a nice healthy coat of black pepper, so a couple pinches on each can really add a little kick of flavor to your already beautiful ribs. Now, we're going to flip these over on the other side, do the exact same thing. Okay, now we're going to put our ribs in the smoker for 3 hours after seasoning them. The ribs are going in uncovered at 250 degrees. We won't be touching the ribs until the 3 hours are up. So guys, the goal is to keep the temperature at about 275 degrees consistently through the cooking process of these pork spare ribs. So as you can see, we use an Oklahoma Joe's indirect heat smoker. And it really billows out the smoke, but it's easy to keep the temperature at that right temperature because of the grate on the side that allows you to let air in, as well as here on the top, which allows you to let the air out. So we really like this smoker, and we think you would too. But any smoker will do. So work on keeping that temperature at about 275 consistently throughout the process, and you'll have success. One other secret to our smoked pork spare ribs is the wood that we use. This is actually apricot wood. It's really hard to find, and if you can get it, I suggest you try it because it gives a wonderful flavor to ribs, chicken, as well as even if you smoke a turkey. It is an awesome flavor. So I don't want to keep this lid open too long to give away the heat, but I wanted to show you what kind of wood we use. So after 3 hours of cooking directly on the smoker, you should start to see the ribs, the rib bones start to pull away a little bit from the meat. And these ones have just started as well, and the one underneath has. But after trimming, seasoning, and cooking for 3 hours, you've done step 1 of the 3-2-1 process for pork spare ribs. So the second part of the process, what we're going to show you is how to wrap them and how to steam them to make the meat extra tender. So the second part of our 3-step process is to take your ribs while they're still warm, turn them upside down on a piece of foil, and each rib will get wrapped in that foil. This is heavy duty foil, so you can use 1 layer. How you know that the ribs are cooked well enough is when the seasoning doesn't come off when you wipe it with your finger. So as you can see, seasoning's not really coming off. It's kind of cooked into the meat. Finally, the last one. So what we'll do next is we're going to make a concoction that's very simple. You can use apple cider or you can use apple juice and about a half a stick of butter. We're going to put this in a blender. We're going to blend it up and we're going to pour that over the underside of the meat. The next step is to pour this buttery apple mixture on the underside of the ribs and use just enough so that it's not dripping everywhere. The purpose of this is to just steam the ribs to make the meat as tender as possible. Now we'll wrap them and we'll put them back in the smoker for 2 more hours. Okay, 2 hours have passed and we've now steamed the ribs in the butter and apple cider, and as you can see, these ribs are ready to fall off the bone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open these up, all of them. Don't they look delicious? We're going to take these out and remove this one, hopefully without spilling, over to there. We'll open the last one here. As you can see, we've got great color on these ribs. The bones are popping through. They're super tender. So our next step is to coat them with our glaze and hit them on the fire for 15 minutes. So the last part of our process here is where we actually glaze the ribs. So we have a homemade barbecue sauce that we use, and my son here is gonna coat it nice and thick on all the ribs. And we made only about, I'd say maybe about a cup of that glaze. And our glaze consists of barbecue sauce, some brown sugar, mustard, garlic powder, a little salt and pepper, and a splash of apple cider vinegar. And what we're gonna do now is, once he's got them pretty well covered, which it looks like we do, get that middle one really good. Once we have these covered, what we're gonna do then is we're gonna stick them under the broiler for just a few minutes. So as you can see, we've sliced up these ribs. They've sat for now about 15 minutes. I'll show you a close-up of what they're supposed to look like. Super meaty. We trimmed all the fat, and you've got great color on the top, a light glaze that just barely sticks to your fingers, and the meat's all the way cooked through. It's over 165 degrees with the meat thermometer. We think this is one of the best ways you can make a rack of pork spare ribs. So make sure you trim them, and you do our 3-2-1 process. 3 hours right on the smoker to get that smoke flavor through the meat. Then 2 hours in foil with a little bit of butter and either apple juice or an apple cider. And then about 15 minutes or so under the broiler just to lock this glaze on the top. Thanks for watching Three Rivers Outdoors. We hope you enjoy barbecue season. Take care.